Developing a website is hard enough already. We've got to juggle HTML and CSS and maybe a framework or library like React. In today's video, we're going to see how we can deploy this straight to the internet without any hassles. We're going to use Linode to do this, and if you haven't heard of me before, I'm Adrian from Australia. I'm a Linode developer advocate, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is to use your own GitHub account to deploy straight to the internet using Linode for your next React application. Now, if you want to try this out yourselves and you don't have a Linode account, I'm going to throw in a link in the description below that'll give you $100 of free credit so you can get started immediately. The first thing we're going to do is head to the Linode website, which is just linode.com. Here you can sign up for an account. I've already got one, so I'm going to simply select login over here. Once we log in, we can create our very first VPS. To do this, we're just going to head over here to the left menu and we're going to select Linodes. From this menu, we're going to create a new Linode, and here we're just going to select an instance of Ubuntu. I'm going to select a default LTS version, so maybe version 20.04 here. For the region, I'm living in Australia, so I'm going to select Sydney over here, and I'm just going to grab the smallest amount, which is just this 1 gig server here. Finally, I'm going to have a look here for the label, and I'm going to leave this as it is, as well as maybe the root password. Here we can set one up. I'm going to generate a secure password over here, and with that done, we'll be able to create the server by selecting create here at the top right. This will initialize and we'll be able to log into this shortly once it's been provisioned. To be able to log into it, we're going to be using a tool called Putty. I don't currently have this installed, so I'm going to head over here to Putty and select to download an instance of it. In order to jump into our server, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the IP address and we're going to log into it using the root and password. So we should get an IP address over here, which we can see has been set up. And using Putty, we're going to place these variables in and we're going to set it up. So let's finish the installation here of Putty. Let's copy over the IP address and we'll paste it here into Putty. And with that done, we'll want to log in as root, and we're just going to paste in the password here as well. Once that's done, we can see our server is up and running. In order to get our React application on here, we need to get the server ready. So I'm going to copy across a few commands to prepare this server. We're going to install curl by running sudo apt-get install curl, and this will allow us to get an instance of Node up and running. So the next thing I'm going to do here is do curl, pull in the URL here for Node, and get this setup installed. We're going to then also do a sudo to apt-get install nodejs as well. So let's do these two things now. This will just load here in the background. So we'll do the next step just in a second once this has finished loading up. It shouldn't take too long, and we should see now that it's finished up. So I'm going to copy over this command here to get nodejs, and this will just pull it in from apt-get as well. And for these, I'm just going to select yes for continuing the installation. With both of these installed, we're going to type in npm-v to see which version we're on, which is 6.14, and node-v, which shows us we're on version 13 here. The next step in this is to install nginx, which will host the web server files for our React application. So before we start off, we'll do a sudo apt update, and this will just make sure we're grabbing the latest version for any of our packages, and as well as sudo apt upgrade in case we have anything that's out of date. After we complete this, we'll do an installation. Let's install it by typing in sudo apt install nginx, and this will kick off the installation, which we hit Y for yes to complete. With this done, we should have everything we need to begin our React application. Now, since we're currently not using a React application just yet, I might set one up. We're going to do npx create react app, and in this case we're going to create a simple one called testapp. Now normally you could copy an instance over directly from your GitHub, or if you've got some web files or even one zipped up, you can do that too. In this case, we're just going to create a new instance of one, and we're going to run the build tool just to get the default build up and running. With that done, we can browse into our project over here, which is our test app, and we can give it a test to see if it's actually working. So in this case, what I'm going to do is just run it by typing in npm start. This should start it up on port 3000, so we should be able to browse here on our web server to see if it's up and running. I'm going to browse in here to port 3000 and see if it appears. And you can see that it has, and it's running here on port 3000. Let's cancel out of here, and the next thing we can do is have a look at how we can put it on our web server. So I'm going to pass in npm run build, as if we had finished our React application and we're building the running production version of it. What I want to do is make sure that we're using the server properly. In order to do that, we're going to move the files into the web server. I'm going to do this by passing in mv. We're going to pass in the directory that we want to move, which is our test app, and we're going to move this into var www. This is where our web server is. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the web server with some default variables so that it can operate properly. So I'm going to pass in this command over here with testapp. This has our configuration in here. So we've got a server name with the IP. We've got a root folder path as well as the files we're trying to access. So I'm going to save that out, and we're going to use this, and we're going to copy this into our sites enabled folder just over here using the folder path testapp. Once that's done, we already have one in place, which is the one that I've created earlier over here. All we have to do now is maybe test that the configuration file is correct and restart the server over here. What you'll notice is that we're using the build files straight away. So now if we restart the application, it's working on port 80 and our React application is up and running. Now anytime we might want to update our application, we can simply pass into the folder here for www testapp. If we're running git, we could do a git fetch and a git update, and we could also do an npm run build, and this would get the latest version of our React application running on our web server. I hope you enjoyed this really quick introduction to setting up a React application on a Linode server. Of course, there are other things to consider. Securing your server, making sure that it's properly firewalled, as well as setting up SSL certificates with things like Let's Encrypt, but those can be looked at in other videos. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.